Guilt is strange. It rarely announces itself directly. It shows up as tiredness that will not lift. It shows up as over-apologizing for things nobody even noticed. It shows up as a low hum of unworthiness. That hum sits underneath ordinary days. Psychology has spent decades mapping why guilt lingers so much longer than the event itself. Stoic philosophy offered a surprisingly precise answer long before any of that research existed. Clinical researchers distinguish between two kinds of guilt. The difference matters enormously. Adaptive guilt is short. It is also functional. It signals a specific action that violated your own values. It fades once you correct course. Chronic guilt behaves in a completely different way. It attaches itself to identity, not to the action itself. Instead of thinking, "I did something wrong," the mind shifts. It quietly starts believing, "I am something wrong." That shift from action to identity matters enormously. This is where guilt stops being useful and starts becoming a prison. Researchers studying rumination found something specific. Chronic guilt keeps replaying an event using the same neural circuitry involved in threat monitoring. The brain treats an old mistake as if it were still actively dangerous. It keeps scanning for it long after any real consequence has passed. This explains something strange. Guilt can feel just as intense 5 years later as it did on day one. The nervous system never received a clear signal. It never learned that the threat had ended. Epictetus built an entire philosophy around exactly this kind of confusion, deliberately. He taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our judgment about them that produces suffering. Applied to guilt, this idea becomes strikingly clinical. The original action is a fixed fact in the past. It cannot change. It cannot be edited. It cannot be relived either. What can be edited is the ongoing judgment layered on top of it today. That judgment is precisely where chronic guilt actually lives. This is exactly where Stoic detachment gets frequently misunderstood. Detachment does not mean denying responsibility. It does not mean pretending the past did not happen. It means separating the fact of an action from the endless emotional replay attached to it, on purpose. Epictetus called this the discipline of assent. It means refusing to automatically believe every painful thought the mind generates just because it feels urgent. Marcus Aurelius practiced a related technique. Modern psychology now studies it under a different name. He would examine a painful thought carefully. Then he asked whether continuing to dwell on it actually served anyone, including himself. If it did not serve him, he treated further dwelling as unnecessary weight. He set it down deliberately, rather than carrying it out of habit. Clinicians today call this cognitive defusion. It is the practice of noticing a thought without automatically obeying its emotional pull. Self-compassion research adds another crucial layer to this picture. Studies consistently show something surprising. Harsh self-punishment does not actually improve future behavior. It mostly just prolongs suffering. It rarely produces better outcomes. People who treat themselves with the same respect they would offer a struggling friend recover faster. They also show equal or greater accountability for their actual mistakes. Punishment and accountability turn out to be different mechanisms entirely. Seneca wrote something that reads almost like a direct prescription for this exact problem. He said a person who exhausts themselves reviewing yesterday's failures pays a real price. They have no strength left for today's responsibilities. Guilt, carried past its useful signal, does not sharpen your character. It simply drains the resources you would need to actually do better going forward, quietly. The suffering itself does not make you more moral. It just makes you more tired. There is a specific practice both traditions converge on. It appears almost identically in both. First, name the actual action honestly and specifically. Do not attach vague self-condemnation to it. Second, ask clearly what correction or amends is genuinely possible now, if any. Third, once that correction is made, or clearly impossible, stop rehearsing the event on purpose. Epictetus called this returning attention to what is currently within your control deliberately. Modern therapists have their own name for it. They call it closing the loop. Both traditions point toward the same closing act. Guilt that has done its job should be allowed to end. None of this means becoming someone who feels nothing after real wrongdoing. Genuine accountability and chronic guilt only resemble each other from far away. Accountability looks forward. It changes behavior. Chronic guilt looks backward instead. It changes nothing except your own peace. A person can hold full responsibility for a past action. They can still refuse to let that action define every day that follows it. Marcus Aurelius made plenty of mistakes as emperor. Some of them were significant and very public. He was not remembered for pretending those mistakes never happened at all. He was remembered for something else. He corrected what could be corrected, then returned his full attention to the responsibilities in front of him. That return, practiced deliberately and repeatedly, is the real cure. Both ancient philosophy and modern psychology now agree on this. It is not the absence of guilt. It is the refusal to let guilt overstay its welcome. Consider two people who make the same mistake at work. One replays it every night for months, imagining harsher and harsher judgments from people who have already moved on. The other names the mistake once, makes whatever correction is possible, and returns to normal functioning within a week. Both people made an identical error. Only one of them is still paying for it half a year later, and nobody outside their own head is collecting that payment. This is the part that clinical research keeps confirming in different ways. Guilt does not actually track the size of the wrongdoing very well. It tracks something closer to how much a person already believes they are fundamentally flawed. Someone with a fragile sense of self-worth can drown in guilt over a minor slight, while someone with a stable sense of self can process genuine harm, make real amends, and still sleep soundly the same night. The guilt is not measuring the crime, it is measuring the wound underneath it. Epictetus addressed this indirectly through his teaching on self-worth not depending on external outcomes. If your value as a person never depended on being flawless in the first place, a single mistake cannot threaten that value at its foundation. This is not arrogance. It is simply refusing to let one action, however serious, become the entire verdict on an entire life. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to a similar image in his private writing. He described the mind as something that colors experience the way a dye colors cloth, repeatedly, until the color becomes permanent through sheer repetition. Dwelling in guilt, session after session, dyes the mind toward guilt as its default emotional state. Practicing correction and deliberate release, session after session, dyes it toward resilience instead. Neither shift happens instantly, and neither one is meant to. Both happen slowly, through repetition, which is exactly what modern behavioral research on habit formation now confirms in laboratories today.